Our discussion is on being purposeful, and how it can help you handle peer pressure. That's really what we shall be looking at, and praying to God that God will help us to gain something out of it that could help us in life. So we also will be in the process touching on the issue of being ethical. We are saying, if you are purposeful in your life, you don't just do things because others are doing. You don't do things because your parents did them or your uncle did them. You don't do things because you enjoy doing them. You do things with a reason. In other words, when I see you doing something, I can ask you, why are you doing it? If your answer is, I like it, then means you are not a purposeful person. A purposeful person never does anything for the sake of doing it. They only do things with a reason. I assume many of you know the Bible. And in John 4:34, we read Jesus saying, talking about himself, I came to do the will of him who sent me and to finish his work. In other words, Jesus, as a man, was a purposeful person. He had a purpose. Everything he did for a purpose. Even at the age of 12, the parents are saying, where are you? What have you been doing? He said, I'm in my father's business. Of course, must have been complicated because he's talking about his heavenly father. And if you learn anything out of Jesus' life on earth, it's about a person who never did anything just for the sake of doing it. He always had a purpose. And he is saying, the reason I'm on earth is to do the will of God who sent me. And not only do it, finish it. Because some people know the purpose for which they live for, but they don't finish. They leave things half done. Let me start by, in describing this purposeful person, you can actually tell by his attitude to life. I want to ask you, what is your attitude to life? There are three options. You can be an optimist, and some of you listening to me are actually optimists. Who is an optimist? An optimist is a person who never sees anything going wrong. He thinks everything must go right. People who are optimists end up with a lot of problems. Unfortunately, many motivational speakers tend to encourage everybody to be an optimist. But honestly, if you know what an optimist is, number one, an optimist never wants to see anything that is wrong. Never wants to imagine anything can go wrong. For him, everything is right. You tell him, have you thought about this? No, you are being negative. Optimists are people who get in shock. Most of them are the ones who end up in depression. Why? Something happened, and because they never imagined it can happen, when it did actually happen, they were too much in shock. And some of them are so shocked that they end up with a heart attack and die. Optimists, that's something you should avoid with all your might, to be an optimist. Where nothing can go wrong. Everything must work out right. So, in fact, even most people who commit suicide are optimists. Because things are happening. They never imagine something like that can happen. No, that girl, she cheated me that she was my girlfriend. Can you see, I saw her with somebody else. And the guy is in depression because the girl is a friend of somebody else. Or he feels abandoned. That's an optimist who doesn't know that human beings can change. Can't even imagine the girlfriend could change. And they are not married. So as long as they are not married, surely the girl is free to be friends with others. But an optimist assumes it's not possible. She can never think of somebody else. He doesn't understand, because he is so positive, he does not understand the possibility that although he is good in one thing, he's not good in another. And the friend knows it. Everybody except himself knows about his weaknesses. But an optimist is just positive. Nothing can go wrong. Of course, not everything about an optimist is bad, because an optimist is likely to see good in everyone. And that means they are likely to make friends very easily, because he sees good in everyone, doesn't think negatively of anybody. That's positive. That's a good thing. But the trouble is, even an optimist, you only see what is good. That means you make friends very easily, but you also conned very easily. You are conned very, very easily, because you never imagine anybody can con. How could he? So can you see clearly that if your attitude to life is an optimist, you are likely to be the guy I'm describing, somebody with a purposeful living style. You know, even if you are to go through the Bible, an optimist cannot be a Christian. Because you see, Christianity teaches us to know that things can go well, but things can also go bad. That is the message that we actually get in the book of Romans chapter 8, verse 28. It says that in everything, it says, for God works for good. For all things work for good to those who love him. Please notice the word for good. The Bible does not promise that everything will work good. The Bible promises whether they are bad things or good things, God will make them work for good. Optimists do not see the word for. They quote Romans 8 verse 28 as if it is promising that all things are going to work good. But the Bible is clear. Not all things work good. But even bad things that happen to you, God uses them ultimately for your good. For your good. The key word is for your good. And then 1 Thessalonians 5 verse 17 is saying, in everything give thanks. It doesn't say for everything give thanks. In other words, when bad things happen, you are not being asked to thank God that a bad thing happened to me. But you are told, even in the middle of the bad circumstance, God is still there. Be grateful. What that means is that the Bible teaches us that things can go bad, but God has not abandoned you. He is still with you. There's a whole book on this subject called the book of Job, who was a righteous man. So righteous that he not only repented his own sins, he even repented the sins of his children. But things started going bad. And they were so bad, very few of us on earth have ever gone through what Job went through. But at no time, as the bad things were happening, had God abandoned him. He was in control. And that's one of the things a purposeful person understands, that he has a purpose, but only God can take him there, and God could take him there through various challenges. So when a challenge happens, he is a little disappointed, but he's not in shock. So I hope then understand that if you're a purposeful person, you cannot be an optimist. But some people listening to me are actually not optimists. They are actually pessimists. Who is a pessimist? A pessimist is a person who only sees things going bad. Please note the word only. The optimist only sees things only going well. The pessimist sees things only going badly. So the trouble with the pessimist is that he dies before he dies. Because he imagines he has a small pain on the leg and he assumes it is cancer, and he assumes he's dying. He has no energy even to go to hospital. He will die because he assumes he's dead before he's dead. Pessimist. That's a dangerous position to be. You cannot be a purposeful person who is going to realize the reason for which you are created if you are a pessimist. Because pessimists only see bad things happening. You give a pessimist a gift, the question will be, why are you giving me a gift? What wrong have you done? You must be bribing me. He cannot imagine that somebody likes him and is just giving him a gift and it has no strings attached. He is always imagining challenges. Now, so pessimists don't make very good friends because they are negative. Nobody wants to be around them because even when there's a party, they'll look for a reason. Okay, they have a cake, but how come it is so tall? Yeah, this party has a cake, but how come it's not as sweet as the one we had in Kamau's house? He is always looking for what is negative in anything. So he makes, whereas the optimist is the spirit of the party, but the pessimist is the killer of the party spirit. So people try to avoid the pessimist. It makes it very difficult for him to make friends. And you know, many of the purposes God will give you to achieve, you can't achieve alone. You need to be with others. But a pessimist will not do that because he's always thinking. Now, so the trouble with the pessimist is that he is drained of energy because of fear. He dies before he's dead. But a pessimist cannot be a Christian also. Why? How can you assume that all things will go bad when God is in charge of something? You know, God has no limitations. So even if you can see clearly, it is true, you have a pain, it actually could be cancer, you believe in a God who can heal, even cancer. So it means, even when there is a pain, you do not start imagining the very worst. And you know, even if the worst happened, you know God can heal. So you cannot assume that things are all going bad because it's not dependent on you. It's dependent on God who has no limitations. So a pessimist cannot be a believer of the Bible because the Bible doesn't tell us that God has any limitations. And if you are relying on God to help you fulfill the purpose which God himself has given you, obviously, you know he will help you to achieve whichever way. So now, if you cannot be an optimist and you cannot be a pessimist, what should you be? A realist. Who is a realist? A realist is a person who looks at an issue and forces himself to see it in both ways. If he is born very pessimistic, he forces himself to see, he will find it very easy to see the negative side of the issue. So, a realist forces himself to think like an optimist. If he is born an optimist, he forces himself to see the negative side. And therefore, by the time he is making a decision, he makes a realistic decision. That's who a realist is. And that's what the Bible teaches us. The Bible teaches us to approach issues with looking at the totality of an issue, both what can go bad and what can go bad, and make a decision on a realistic basis. So realists are people of purpose. The reason why they are doing the extra work of analyzing issues is because they want to achieve what God has given them to achieve. And I want to ask you a question. Are you that kind of a person? Are you a realist? Let me pick another set. Still talking about the attitude to the future. Again, we have three types of individuals listening to me. The first one is the unchanging individual. These unchanging individuals are people who waste their experiences. No lessons are learned from any experience. Whether good experience, bad experience, to them, they just live their life. So, have you ever heard of the saying, if you don't learn from history, you condemn yourself to repeat it? That's really what we are talking about when we are talking about these people. And I'm sure you find it difficult to imagine there are such people, but they are there. Don't even look outside yourself. Are there things you have gone through, and yet you are going through it a second time? That means you learned nothing out of the first experience. You know, experience is a very good teacher. The only trouble is that experience is a very expensive teacher. But it is a good teacher. But it's only a good teacher if you force yourself to learn something out of experience. That means you fail exams. Of course, it's disappointing. But beyond just being disappointed, you ask, what do I learn out of this failure? And you draw lessons. Most likely, the reason I failed the exam is this and this and this. How can I prevent myself failing exam this and this and this? So that failure will benefit you. But many people don't. They just keep repeating themselves. They had a girlfriend, then they were dropped like a hot potato by that girlfriend, and all they can say is that she's a bad girl. They don't sit to analyze what is their contribution in the broken relationship. What can they learn out of it? So they are continuously hurting others because they learn nothing out of the various experience. If you are this kind of a person who learns nothing out of experience, how will you live your purpose? How will you achieve what God has placed you away? It will not happen. I'm asking you, are you in that category where there is nothing you can learn? And anyway, but then you don't have to learn from yourself. Look at your own parents. Maybe your parent is a drunkard. And I find it very challenging to imagine somebody who is a father who is a drunkard is sort of tasting wine. I thought because you have seen what alcohol has done to your parents, you would never, not only wouldn't you be drunk, you will not even touch any alcohol. You have seen boys who are going to rehabilitation centers because of drugs. And you even may know a cousin or a friend who has been, where the parents have lost a lot of money. They go to rehabilitation, they pay a lot of money, he's out. Then back, then out, then back. He can't pass his exams, he's totally lost. And with all that experience, you don't draw lessons. Even you yourself want to experiment with the drugs. Can you see you are in this first? People in this first category can never live out their purpose. So you need to ask yourself, when you watch your friends, what are their weaknesses? They themselves may not realize, but you can see it. How can you do the same things that's getting them into trouble? It's because you don't draw any lessons out of the things God is allowing you to see. But I seem to be implying only negative things you learn lessons from. It's true, the Bible says that you learn more out of the house of mourning than the house of parting. But the truth is, even a good experience, you can learn something. Like you did an exam in mathematics and you did very well. You are the best in the class. Can't you sit down and ask yourself, how come? How come? What did I do that made me pass this mathematics paper? Draw lessons out of it, so that next time you are sitting an exam, you can actually repeat what helped you to pass the previous time. That means you learned a lesson out of it. But if you pass and you don't even know why you passed, you don't even want to know why you passed, the next time you don't know what to do to pass. Because for you, it's bahati nasibu, it's trial and error. Because you're not drawing lessons out of them, out of the experience, the good experience. So that's the first category of people. And I'm telling you that this first category cannot achieve their purpose in life. The second category is called the reactive people. These are people who react to experiences. Normally when we say, oh, so-and-so is so reactive, we look at it negatively. But now that you know about type 1, reactive people are very good. Why? They learn from experience. The only negative thing with the reactive people, they pay a heavy school fees. Their school fees for learning is very high because they wait until a problem happens, then they learn out of it. But they are not like the first one. They don't waste their experience. They learn from their experience. So reactive people may be slow in achieving their purpose in life, but they will certainly achieve it because they don't waste any good experience or any bad experience. My friend, are you reactive? Do you actually force yourself to learn from experience? Do you sit down at the end of the month and look at the past month and ask, what went well? What went bad? Why did it go badly? Why did it go well? What lessons can I learn to be a better person next month? Or maybe now you have closed school and you are looking at the last term. What went well? What did not go well in the last term? What lessons can you learn from both? What went well and went badly, so that you can be a better person next term? What about the previous holidays, school holidays in December? What went bad? What went well? What lesson did you learn from there that should be helping you to enjoy your holidays better and be more productive during the April holidays or whatever? These are reactive people. And they are people who learn and achieve things. But because of the cost of the reactive type of a person, that's not what we recommend. We recommend that you become proactive. Purposeful people are neither the unchanging type 1 or the reactive type 2. They are type 3. They are proactive because they don't wait for things to go well or go badly. They actually predict whether they'll go badly or go well because they prepare for the future. That's why they are called proactive. That means if a guy intends to go to university, he's already reading around about university and university life. So he wants to ask, what is it I can do in high school to help me for university life? What are the challenges in the university? And yet he's not there. But because he is not reactive, he does not want to reach the university and then he sees things and react to them. He wants to find out as much information about the university before. What are the challenges in the university? What goes well in the university? Are there people who fail? Why do they fail? What can one do in order not to fail the exams in the university? They are not married, but they look at marriages and learn about marriage so that they can see, I don't want to marry early. People who are married are like this. These are the benefits of marrying, but they also have these following challenges. Now, that means you don't jump into marriage and then you want to jump out of it because you are proactive. And you can see the advantages of being proactive. Number one, it means you have thought through what can go bad. Because you have thought through what can go bad, you actually are able to prepare and do things to stop it from going bad. If you know, for example, people in the university have so much freedom, they end up taking drugs, then you prepare for it. You say, when I reach the university, I will join the Christian Union. I want to be in the right company. I don't want the freedom to mess me up. So you can actually be proactive people, can see what can go bad. Because remember, I told you they are realists also. So they think through what can go bad. And because they think what can go bad, they do, upfront, they do things that will prevent it from going bad. But number two, if they are proactive, it means that when something finally goes bad, it doesn't shock them. They will not commit suicide. If they are not, they are of course disappointed because they did their best to prevent it from going bad. But if it actually goes bad, they will not be going for counseling or seeing psychiatrists because their mind was ready for it. That's why they did their best to try to stop it from going bad. But if it goes bad, they have also prepared for emergency response plan. They thought through. I am trying to do my best. I'm praying to God doesn't happen. But if it happened, this is what I would do. So people that are proactive, even when bad things happen to them, they have thought through about them, so they are able to come out of the problem faster. That's what they call in safety and health literature, ERS, Emergency Response Plan. They have emergency response plan. Remember, the unchanging type do not want to imagine anything can go bad. So therefore, they are not ready. When it goes bad, they are not ready at all. But the proactive person has thought through. So they have actually assumed it can actually go bad. And if it went bad, this is what I will do. You know, the proactive person also, because he has thought through into the future, also makes better decisions. Because sometimes in preparing for the future, we are, I can't see any solution to that challenge. That may not be the route to take. So therefore, they abandon the whole thing and don't do it. Let me give you an example. Maybe you want to take a loan. A person who is, like I talked about, an optimist, always assumes he will pay the loan. But if you are proactive, you think, how much will I be required to pay per month? How much is my income? Can I really pay that loan? So he is preparing. And then he realizes, yes, I can pay it. Then he asks, am I in control? Can I be fired? Or am I in control that I cannot be fired? If I own my own business, am I in control of customers? Can they change their mind and not come? Say, it's very unlikely, but it could happen. I'm not in control. So I ask myself, if I lost my job, or if customers stopped coming to my business, that means I'll be unable to pay the loan, yes. What will the bank do? They are going to sell my property. Now, if they sold my property, can I survive? If the answer is, in case I'm unable to pay, I cannot survive, then I'll not take the loan. Because you don't want to take chances with something that can ruin you or destroy you. So you can see clearly this proactive person is likely to end up achieving his purposes far much better than the other type. Let me again ask you a question. Which type are you? There's nothing wrong earlier in being any one of the types. But from now onwards, should you continue being reactive? Or should you continue being an unchanging person? Let me tell you the problem with us as Africans. Our traditional belief does not allow us to be proactive. In fact, in my mother tongue, they say, you do not make clothes for a baby who is still in the mother's womb. Meaning, be very careful about imagining too much about the future. They want the baby to be born, then you start struggling then. So that thing makes sure that, in fact, if you think something will go bad, it's of course superstition. If you think something will go bad, that will make it go bad. So, because of that, we tend not to spend a lot of time thinking about the future, or think about what could go wrong in a project, or thinking about what could go wrong in a friendship, or thinking about what can go wrong in life, because of our traditional belief system. But that's not the only problem. Those of us who are Christians have a different problem. What's our problem? We assume that it's lack of faith. To imagine something will go bad, it just means you are not a person of faith. People of faith are optimists. But that's not the scripture. The scripture says, when you think about something and it concerns you, that is Philippians chapter 4, verse 6 to 7. It's saying, don't be anxious. Whatever it is you are thinking, don't allow it to be anxious. Instead, by prayer and supplication, make your request known unto God, and the peace of God that surpasses all understanding will keep your heart and your mind in Christ Jesus. What that means, and it's a very important thing to understand, is that the Bible is encouraging you to think about what can go bad, but don't be anxious. Instead, call for God's intervention. So it's not, but the problem is people of faith tend to assume it's not right to think things can go bad. Yet, if you really are a prayer warrior, how will you pray if you don't imagine what can go bad? Because it's when you, for example, you think about our elections. And from experience, you know that we sometimes fight during elections. But instead of becoming anxious, you make it a prayer item for the elections, next elections in the country, instead of getting worried. So proactive people are not worried. They become prayer warriors. They are able to put the issues to God who has unlimited strength. So let me ask you, what are you? You know, David, the king in the Bible, is a man of purpose. We know that because his life is summarized in the book of Acts, chapter 13, verse 36 and 37. We read, for when David had served God's purpose in his own generation, he fell asleep, he was buried with his fathers, and his body decayed. But the one that God raised from the dead did not see decay. In other words, the verse 7 talking about Jesus. But he's saying, we human beings have a sell-by date. But before we die, the verse is telling us, David and all of us have a reason why we were born. When David had served God's purpose in his own generation. That means every one of us, nobody's just born. There is a problem in this world whose solution lies with that baby. The question is for that baby to find out, what is the purpose? What was I born for? Because David discovered his purpose and lived out his purpose to shepherd God's people. Started by practicing by shepherding sheep, then he started shepherding God's people. But the point that I think the passage wants us to know is that every individual has a purpose. There is a reason. And your purpose is not my purpose. Your purpose is not your father's purpose. Your purpose is not your uncle's. Every child has a unique purpose. There is something you are given, a combination of experiences and gifts that are able to help you meet your purpose. Please understand again, I'm repeating, your purpose is not better than purpose. Don't try to do what I'm doing. Do what you are created to achieve. So the biggest and important issue is for every boy and girl, as early as possible, to discover what his purpose is. But please note this complication. It doesn't say when David had served Jesse's purpose. Remember that the father of David was called Jesse. It is not Jesse who determined David's purpose. Because Jesse just did not create David. He just happened to be the father. David is God's child. So, similarly, you do not live your life to fulfill the desires of your father and mother. Please explain to your father that you came from God and you want to live your life for the purpose God has given you. Because your father has a purpose. He needs to fulfill it. But his purpose is not your purpose. And carrying out your father's purpose will not please God. David did not do or live for just his purpose, his father's purpose. The other thing you note is that David did not serve his personal purpose. What do you want to be? I want to be a gynecologist, okay? That's what you want to be. But what does God want you to be? Because you do not live to serve your personal purpose. You live to serve God's purpose. So the important thing is to pray so that God shows you what that purpose is. The last one point I want to say here is that your purpose is not for history. It's your generation. That's why I totally disagree with people who keep telling young people, you are the leaders of tomorrow. No. You are the leaders of your generation. So if you are in primary school, the other children in primary school, you are supposed to be serving them. Serving your generation is whatever age. When you are in high school, you are supposed to serve your generation, other people in high school. When you're in the university, you are supposed to be serving others. So you are not a leader of tomorrow. You are a leader now. And my friend, if you are not already impacting or meeting that purpose, you are not living for that purpose in high school, you may never live for that purpose later in life. Because you serve your own generation. Luke chapter 2 verse 52 says, and Jesus grew in wisdom and stature and in favor with God and man. Baby Jesus, we have seen earlier, was a child of purpose. Because he was a child of purpose, he did not look at on one side. He looked at 4 areas. He grew up, he developed in all 4 areas. Are you a person of purpose? You must be rounded, not one track, not a one-track guy. You must look wide. And the 4 areas the Bible is telling us, baby Jesus grew in. Number 1, he grew in wisdom, intellectual development. If you want to be a person of purpose, you need to be a person who invests in intellectual development. You do not like ignorance. You do your best not to be ignorant. You make a commitment to study. When others are watching pornography, you are busy reading things that can help you to fulfill your purpose. You are studying in the areas of your calling. And you don't just rely on academic work. You read beyond what the teacher requires or what the syllabus requires for intellectual development. And you don't just read when you're in school. You read, I'm about 70, you read at whatever age. Because if you're a person of purpose, ignorance will not help you to fulfill your purpose. You need intellectual development all the days of your life. You should die learning. But you are told the baby not only had intellectual development, he had physical development. He grew in stature. And for you, it's exactly the same. The fact that you are studying hard does not tell you to ignore your body. No, there are people who do that. During their exams, they are the people who are going to be spending all their time, not just wasting time, but because they are one track people, they are going to spend all their time doing things that are not rounded. Let me tell you an example. They will read throughout the night up to 3 a.m. Then they wake up at 5, having slept only 2 hours. You know what happens to the body? The body gets sick. And they could get sick so that on the day of the exam, the mind just shuts up. You cannot be somebody who is putting all your effort in the intellectual development and forgetting your body. Because your mind lives within your body. So if you don't look after your body, your mind development will be sabotaged. That means people of purpose are very careful with their bodies. They check what they eat. They make sure they do physical exercise. They also make sure they rest adequately. Is that you? Are you careless with what you eat? Do you look after your physical health? You know, maybe you're even somebody who has very spiritual impact. But once your body is sick, you can't go to preach. So you need to look after your health if you're a man of purpose. Number 3, we are told the baby grew in favor with God. What does that mean? Spiritual development. The boy child took time to spend time with God, to read the scrolls. They were called scrolls. Now we have the Bible. And he grew such that by the age of 12, he could challenge the elders in the temple. Let me ask you, maybe for you, you're okay intellectual development. Maybe you're okay on physical development. But do you invest time in relationship with God? Do you actually have personal quiet time? When you close all things out, you are not studying, you just want to pray to God. Joshua chapter 1 God tells Joshua, this book of the law will not depart from your mouth. You will meditate on it day and night. What that means is that anybody who wants to be a man of purpose, an achiever, must allocate on a daily basis time when they close everything else and concentrate with God. We actually told Jesus himself when he was on earth, he would wake up very early in the morning, leave his disciples and go to a mountainside or some place secluded to have time with his Father. And you need to understand, many people are intellectually okay, physically okay, but because of their lack of spiritual development, when they are tempted, they do things. You find a girl is bright, is okay, but then she gets pregnant in Form 3. Why? She was stunted spiritually. She did not have the spiritual power to say no to the temptations of sin. She ended up becoming pregnant. Here is a boy, he's a Form 4 about to get the exam. That's when he is being pronounced as having HIV. And it completely destroys him. Why? Because he did not have the spiritual capacity to say no to sexual temptation. My friend, if you want to be a person who is going to achieve, you must be a person who invests heavily in his spiritual development. Finally, we are told this boy Jesus grew in favor with men. That's what I'm calling social development. Learning at a very early age how to deal with people. You know, some people are very difficult to live with. But maybe the reason God has given you them is for you to learn and socially develop. Like you are born in a family, but one of your brothers or your sisters is just difficult, impossible. But he's your brother, there's nothing you can do about it. God has given you such a difficult guy so that you learn your social skills, interpersonal skills. The home environment is a very good training ground. The same thing with your classmates. Some of them are difficult, impossible. But God is giving you ability to know how to handle difficult people. If you keep running away from people who are difficult, you might never grow your social skills. And if you are really going to make it in life, I already said it, let me repeat it. Nobody can achieve anything if they don't know how to work in a team. And the team will not always have good people. They will have difficult people also. Sometimes the most important person of the team is also a proud person and a difficult person to work with. If you're a person of purpose and want to achieve, you will be rounded, is the point I'm I'm trying to give to you. But just so that you understand, this idea of becoming proactive is a scriptural thing, I'd like you to go to the book of Luke, chapter 14. Luke chapter 14, reading from verse 28. We are being told something very, very, very interesting in that story. That suppose one of you wants to build a tower. A tower is a big construction thing. Will you not sit down and estimate the cost to see if it was enough money, if he has enough money to complete it? For if he lays a foundation and is not able to finish it, everyone who sees it will ridicule him, saying, this fellow began to build and was not able to finish. Are you getting to understand? Jesus is criticizing people who are reactive. He is saying you should be proactive. Why did you begin such a project? Before thinking clearly, doing cost estimates, looking at your sources. And if you realize that you don't have enough resource, delay the starter. Why start the building if you can't finish it? It's what Jesus is asking. You should not be living your life before God if you have not thought through the total life and planned how to live it. And that will be something that is very, very important for all of us. That's what the Bible is teaching us. The reactive, the unchanging are not biblically right. The Bible is teaching us the importance of having an action plan, thinking ahead. You need a vision. A vision is a picture of completed project, well before the project actually starts. A personal vision statement is like your eulogy written in advance. In other words, why can't you see the end and seeing the end come back to the beginning? And it will be very important to understand that's what Jesus is telling this guy. You should have thought through, have the vision of a completed tower, then go through the process of how to get there. And we could go on and on. And we are saying you need a mission statement. What's a mission statement? Vision statement is a noun. How does a completed tower look like? Mission is, how will I get there? It's a verb. What I will do to complete the building. You know, having a mission statement allows you to do today's activities in a way that will count towards the desired future impact. That means every day is a small contribution to the final vision of your life. It helps you with choices and gives you stamina, motivation to face today's challenge. Because once you know what you are trying to achieve, then you work at it because you can see what is the carrot ahead. Because you know what you are going to achieve as you go through the challenge no longer look frustrating. Have you read Proverbs 29, verse 18? It says, where my people have no vision, they have no restraint. In other words, if you don't have a clear thing you are living for, a purpose for which you are living for, you have a lot of time to waste. You have no restraint. Why should I wake up early? For what? I'm on holiday. I can sleep the whole day. But if there's something you are trying to achieve, you wake up on time. That's what really we are learning from this passage. And it will be important that that we are able to deal with it in that way. I have to find a way of finishing because I can see our time is going. But what we are saying is you need to prioritize your life in a vision and a mission. After you have written your vision and mission, it will be important to write strategies of achieving that mission. Then for each strategy, you are supposed to get clear goals because the strategy is long term. You now have goals, what I can achieve this year or the next year. Then for each goal, have activities that can help you achieve that goal. I've taken longer than I wanted. But the other thing I wanted to emphasize, you really cannot, let's be clear, you cannot be a purposeful person if you cannot be trusted. And people don't trust somebody who is not ethical. I've kept emphasizing to you that anything worth living for cannot be done by one person. So God will give you people to work with. But if they don't trust you, they'll drop you like a hot potato. So you'll not be able to achieve much out of it. Just look at what Psalms 15 is saying. Lord, who may dwell in your sacred tent? Who may live on your holy mountain? They are listed. Number one, you must aim to be blameless. You must aim to be righteous. You must aim to be the person who has truth from their heart. In other words, you don't tell people what they want to hear. It's from your heart. You must aim to be a person who doesn't slander others. Otherwise, you'll lose. You'll not be able to work in teams when you keep slandering others or doing wrong to your teammates or simply wanting to spoil other people's character. But I like verse 4. This person whom can be trusted does not keep bad company. He despises a vile person. You don't keep, he cannot be associated with bad company. The same message we get from 1 Corinthians chapter 15, verse 33. Don't be deceived. Bad company spoils good character. So we learn people that are ethical are not in the company of vile people. But then the next phrase is even more important. He keeps his oath even when it hurts. In other words, your word is your bond. And you are the kind of a person when you promise something, even if it will cost you heavily, even if it will hurt your other project, you keep your word. That means you are not quick to make promises, because when you make promises, you keep to them. And of course, finally, in verse 5, he's not corrupt. He can never accept a bribe in order to sabotage somebody else. Doesn't deal in bribe. He's not corrupt at all. That kind of a person being described in verse 15 is a person who certainly is going to be trusted. And because he is trusted, you have people who can work with him in achieving his dream. I've run out of time, but I wanted to also mention that this person who has purpose finds it easy to stand his ground. Look at Micah chapter 7. Do not trust a neighbor. Put no confidence in a friend. Even with her who lies in your embrace, be careful of your words. For a son dishonors his father, a daughter rises up against her mother, a daughter-in-law against her mother-in-law. A man's enemies are the members of his own household. What are we learning? Your peers, you need to trust them. But you need to trust them and test them. That means, please, because you remember what Micah chapter 7, verse 6 is saying. A man's enemies are the members of his own household. Your close friends are the ones who will sabotage your purpose. So peer pressure, what is peer pressure? First of all, the word peer means somebody who is equal to you. Somebody who is like you. Do you know, if, for example, the president is driving a big motorcade, people who have no intention of becoming president cannot be jealous of him. But somebody else who failed to win the election last time, and he sees the president driving a motorcade, he feels terrible. That is what we call peer pressure. Peer pressure is not just for young people. Even old people have peer pressure. Oh, how can that guy be like that? And he was my classmate. How can his son do that well? But he got married at the same time. That is all peer pressure. But a man who is going to achieve his purpose does not allow peers to dictate to him. He lives his life. You know, there are three types of people. Number one are people who are just part of the mob. And you can find this in my book. I've written a book, A Leader's Source of Influence. It has a chapter on how to handle peer pressure. And I want to ask you, if you're a man of purpose, you're not the part of the mob. Why did you do it? We did it. And you know, mob psychology is terrible. They'll kill someone. Later you ask him, why were you killing him? I think he had stolen. Do you know he had stolen? No. You just thought, yes. And you killed him for thinking. A person of purpose never behaves because of what mob is doing. He's not part of a mob. He may be with many people. He may have many friends, but he does not do things because his friends are doing it. He is able to withstand his peers. So what you are saying is, that the second type of people are people who influence. You know, the first type is they're just in the mob. They do whatever the mob wants. The second type are people in the mob. They can see clearly the mob is going to a wrong direction, but they feel helpless. What could I do? It's like Joseph, son of Jacob, in the Bible. He is a slave in Potiphar's house. And then the wife of Potiphar wants to sleep with him. What do you do? What could I have done? People of purpose never reach a corner. Joseph decided he was holding the coat. She left him with the coat and ran. These people are not helpless. They can see what the mob is doing is not right. So they will either try to stop the mob or they will come out of the mob. They don't behave like what the peers are. And the final part, the final example of a person in a mob is, he is not just in the mob. He doesn't say he is helpless. He is the one who leads the mob. All of a sudden, he starts a song. The mob picks it. And the song changes direction. Because he's the one leading it, he starts taking the group to a different direction. And you need to be that kind of a person who is determining the direction of the mob. You are clear what should happen, and you influence what happens. These are people, we say in English, who can move against the current. They can actually move against the current. And you know, moving against the current is difficult. You know, dead fish always move with the current. Living fish always swim upstream. They can swim upstream. If you're a man of purpose, you swim upstream. You are not a dead fish. So you don't flow with the river. What is easy to do is not what you do. You need what needs to be done. You will be a disciplined person. Anyway, my time is up. And I thought it's important. Look at Psalms 118. The Lord is with me. I will not be afraid. What can man do to me? That's the way to take life. You don't do things because you feel forced. You can face anybody. Look at Ephesians 4:14. You will be moved to and fro with every wind of doctrine. That is the guy in the first category I called part of the mob. Ephesians is telling you, don't be that kind of a person. Move to and fro. John 16:32b. You will leave me alone, Jesus is telling them. Yet I am not alone, for my Father is with me. And that's what you need to learn. You are never alone. That even if everybody abandons you, your parents abandon you, everybody abandons you, God is with you. That's why you are able to withstand and nobody is with you. You are on your own totally. But because you know what God's calling on your life is, and you know what you are supposed to live for, you live for it. even if you have no support from anybody. James 4:4 says, friendship with the world is hatred to God. If you choose to go with your friends who are doing things that don't please God, then you understand the meaning of this verse. That the moment you choose to be friends with evil people, you become the enemy of God. So what am I saying? You must be suspicious of friendships, not by not having friends. I haven't said that. But so that you know that God is your ultimate true friend. And that the friendship you don't ever want to drop is the friendship with God. Any other friendship with your parents, with the teacher, with everybody is subject to friendship with God. Number 2, be sure who you are. That's the only way of getting to your destination. You belong to God, and God is the one who determines your destination. So, one of the challenges for a man of purpose is knowing themselves, knowing their limitations, and knowing the resources there is in God. So, number 3, as we conclude, we are saying, do not seek sympathy from people. You already have God's love. So if people don't sympathize with you, it should not bother you. You know, God knows you despite where you are, because He made you out of dust. And so He understands whatever your problem currently. So in your failures, in your successes, God is with you. And I think number 4, since you know being in the company of others will not leave you without influence, then choose who influences you. Don't keep the wrong company. And please now last, I'm saying in dealing with this issue of peer pressure, do not say, although they are crooks, I'm not with the crook. Now, if you are with the people, please know your company tells us who you really are. You know, the fact that you are born in a family that has crooks, I can't blame you. But if I see you with crooks as friends is a choice. You cannot have chosen to be the crooks if you yourself are not a crook. So it's very important to understand your company tells me who you really are. So you can see, being a man of purpose will clarify your mind so that you live a life where you have something to live for and something to die for. Number 2, being a person of purpose, you will seek to be ethical, because for you don't want something to interfere with your achieving your purpose. And number 3, being a man of purpose will help you to handle your peer pressure, and so that you can work with anybody without them sabotaging the direction you are going to. Thank you very much. The meeting is back to the MC.
Wow. Thank you so much. We must appreciate you before we go to the next session. You see, itanisaidia kuappreciate hapo. And you're on mute. You see, you're muted. We can't hear you then.
So let us appreciate everyone for this Makovi. And Mr. Makovi, 5, 4, 3, 2, 1. Okay, then that's 5. Thank you so much, Nanganga. That was awesome. We learned so much, and so we want to give a chance to any students to work.
And you can promise them you are going to give them the notes, isn't it?
Yes.
Yeah.
We have some of the board. So anyone who has a question, anything to talk about participation? Let's go.